Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest rock bands and albums and gigs that I have seen over my many years of going to gigs and listening to thousands of albums. Today I am going to be talking about this band, Jane's Addiction. If you enjoy what you see today, please press the red button to subscribe so that you can see future episodes of Greatest Rock and Metal. So, Jane's Addiction. My introduction to Jane's Addiction came in 1990. When I first heard the song and saw the video for Being Caught Stealing. A very unusual song, captures your attention straight away because it starts with a dog barking along to the opening guitar riff, and the video itself is hilarious. It shows the band and various other friends of the band, I guess, going around stealing things. Very funny video and a great catchy song. I'd never heard of Jane's Addiction until I saw that. So obviously I then started to delve a little bit deeper into the band. They first formed in 1985, and the members of the band, we have Dave Navarro, the guitar player, and Perry Farrell, the vocalist. They, without a doubt, are the two most famous, most well-known members of the band because of the other things that they've been involved in. And Navarro, for example, had a short period of time in the Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's also the brilliant drummer Stephen Perkins and the bass player Chris Chaney. And they've another bass player they've had, Eric Avery. So their first album, released in 1987, was an unusual album because it was a live album. Very strange for a band to introduce themselves with a live album. But very soon after that, in 1988, they released this. Nothing's Shocking. A superb album without any shadow of a doubt. But for me, it was their follow-up album in 1990. This one, Ritual Dillo Habitual, from which the Being Caught Stealing single was taken. And that's the one that really grabbed my attention. Although both of these albums are equally brilliant, for sure. As a band, they didn't last very long. By 1991, it was all over, due to a couple of things, really. There was a lot of internal tension in the band because the singer Perry Farrell was very domineering character and wanted to dominate the band, and also there were drug abuse problems within the band as well, so it led them to split. But not for very long. By 1997 they were back together again, and since that time, they're still together today, but since that time, 23 years, they've only recorded two very patchy studio albums, nowhere near the quality of these two classics, and they've released several live albums, DVDs, compilations over that time as well. So that's a brief history of the band. Today I would like to talk about this album because it's the 30th anniversary of the release of the Ritual Dillo Habitual album. A very artistic cover. This is actually the 30th anniversary vinyl reissue. And in here you get, even though it's only a single album sleeve, there's actually a double album, which obviously improves the sound quality, and it's done or pressed on what they call pearl vinyl, which for me is pretty much clear vinyl, and does sound fantastic in both the sound quality and of course the quality of the music. And there is an insert as well with the lyrics and a bit of poetry, I guess. And what is also interesting, let me just hold this behind it so that the light. This album was dedicated to one of Parrell's previous girlfriends, who died at the age of 19 from a heroin overdose. Her name Iola Blue, I think the name is there. And in fact, side 2 of this album is dedicated to her, and the songs are themed about her and her life and her life with Farrell. And side 1 is just a various mixture of lyrical content. So, what about the content then? Well, I, as always, will pick my favourite 4 of the album. And the first track that I will go with is the first track on the album, titled Stop. And one of the great things I love about this song is, first of all, the introduction. It starts with some Spanish words, and loosely translated, the Spanish words say something about Jane's addiction have more power over your children than you do. And it says, but we love them. And very true, really, and it was certainly true for me, and still true today, to be honest, all these years later. The rock music and metal music has played a big part of my life, and for many, certainly for younger people, teenagers especially in early 20s, music and the bands and the artists can have more of an influence. And like I say, to this day, without a doubt, the culture of rock music and metal music has influenced how I dress. It's influenced my education. I've learned a lot of things through lyrics, exploring things from history that have been written about in lyrics, or thought processes and philosophies that come from the lyrics. So, for sure, bands do have an influence. And then so it kicks in with the final Spanish words, "Buenas addiction," and then we're into the jangly guitar riff of the song Stop. Great song to kick off that album. The next song I would choose is the track Aint No Right. I love this song. This is probably my favourite Jane's Addiction song. And going back to the lyrics again, I love the introduction to this song. I am pointy nose, I am skin and bones, but the motherfucker makes me try. Basically what it's saying, Perry Farrell is describing himself, that he's a very thin guy with a pointy nose, and really saying that he's not the best looking guy in the world, but that it makes him try. And that's what Ain't No Right about, not giving up and you know, trying your best in life. Great song, great song. Being Caught Stealing is my third track I would choose off the album. It was a great choice for a single. Very catchy song, and a great video, as I mentioned before. Nothing more to say about that. My fourth pick would be the track 3 Days. An epic track. I think it is probably about, he says, quickly trying to find it. I don't know that the time is on here. Probably about 10 minutes long. Yeah, 10 minutes long track. And it kicks off side 2 of the album. or side 3 of the double album now. And 3 Days is, like I say, an epic song. It goes through lots of ebbs and flows. It's written about his ex-girlfriend, and about birth, and about death, and about rebirth, and about a threesome, because allegedly, so the story goes, that Farrell had a new girlfriend after Iola Blue, but she came to visit him and his new girlfriend after the funeral for her father. And as you do, they ended up having a threesome together. Yeah, it happens to all of us, of course it does. Yeah. So he wrote a song about it, as you do, of course. And there you go, depicted on the album cover there, the 3 lovers. Okay, the guitar work by Navarro on 3 Days is superb. The solo that he plays is just stunning, and it is always a highlight of their live shows. So there you have it. I would thoroughly recommend Ritual de lo Habitual. And I mentioned live shows. I'm going to talk now about the first time that I saw Jane's Addiction live. But before I do that, let's take a look at rock albums by the sea. Hope you enjoyed that. So, my first time seeing Jane's Addiction live wasn't until 2003. This is the ticket from the gig. It was at the Civic Hall in Wolverhampton, of all places. Constantly amazes me, really, and it must amaze the bands, of course. You've got these 4 kids out of Los Angeles who formed this band many years ago, and then what is it, that would have been nearly 20 years later after they formed, they're in Wolverhampton in the UK playing a gig. Phenomenal, really, phenomenal. And so yeah, a strange place to see them. And why did it take me so long to see them live? Well, like I said, I was a little bit of a late starter into them. I didn't get into them until their second album, and they split soon after that. They had done UK tours, and it was just one of those things. It never coincided that I was able to see them when they played until 2003. And that tour was to promote this album, their Strays album, which was an okay album. Like I said before, this and the other studio album they'd released, I think it was called The Great Escape Artist, were not a patch on those two classics, but it was okay. So, but I was excited to go to the gig. I was finally getting to see Jane's Addiction, who by this time had become a real classic band within rock and metal. More alternative rock, they would be described as. And the show was great. The show was great, no doubt about it. There were a couple of disappointments though. First disappointment was Farrell's voice, Perry Farrell's voice. Now, of course, we all know that most singers are not able to replicate their studio work. But I did feel that Farrell's voice was quite weak. He is, of course, made of skin and bones, and didn't seem to be able to project power in his voice in the way that it will come across on the studio albums. The second slight disappointment was the fact that this was my first time to see Jane's Addiction, so of course I wanted to hear a lot of the classic tracks from those two albums, but I don't blame them. The band were out to promote their new Strays album, so there were 6 tracks from the Strays album, which is quite a lot for a new album that's not particularly seen as being a brilliant album. And it was a bit short on the classics. In fact, that leads me to a third disappointment, because one of the other disappointments, they did not play 3 days. Now, you would not see a Jane's Addiction show today without them playing 3 days song, but it wasn't played on that particular evening, which was a disappointment as well. But what we did get was 4 absolute bangers to start the show. They started with the instrumental track called Up the Beach, and then they were into Stop, Ain't No Right, and Being Caught Stealing. So 3 classic tracks from the Ritual de lo Habitual album. So all in all, it was a good gig. I finally got to see Jane's Addiction in Wolverhampton, and I was able to see them again at a future gig. In fact, it was on a brilliant double package tour when they played with 9 Inch Nails. And I have to say, actually, the second time I saw them, which was on that package, they were in much better form. And Farrell's voice, even though a little bit weak still, was better than it was the first time I heard it. Or maybe I just got used to the fact that it wasn't going to be as strong. Can't quite remember which. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on Jane's Addiction. A long career, but very short on new music. But the music that they do have, well, I would normally pick 4 great albums for you to go and investigate, but they don't have that many albums. So I'm just going to recommend that for sure you check out these 2 absolute stone cold classics. The Nothing Shocking album, and of course the Ritual de lo Habitual album. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please press the red button to subscribe to see future episodes of Greatest Rock and Metal. And until next time, as always, remember, we rock!